Familiar picture, right? We are all constantly fed this cute, heartwarming fairy tale. It goes something like this. Once upon a time, a primitive human wandering through the freezing, unforgiving snow found a shivering, abandoned, and helpless wolf pup. The human, possessing a modern sense of empathy, took pity on the creature. They brought it back to the warm cave, fed it some leftover roasted meat from the fire, and suddenly, absolute magic. The wolf pup licked the human's hand, and that is how the first dog appeared, instantly becoming humanity's loyal, loving best friend. I need you to take that Disney nonsense and erase it from your mind completely. It is a biological and historical lie. The Pleistocene epoch, better known to us as the Ice Age, was absolutely not a place to get cute pets. It was a ruthless, terrifying, and hyper-competitive icy wasteland where every single calorie was a matter of immediate life and death. In this frozen hell, humans and wolves were not friends. They were two highly intelligent, highly lethal apex predators locked in a brutal, daily competition for the exact same food sources. To truly understand how this alliance was forged, you have to understand the enemy we were dealing with. We are not talking about the modern timber wolves you see in nature documentaries today. We are talking about the Pleistocene wolf. These animals were massive, heavily muscled, prehistoric killing machines that weighed nearly 180 pounds. They had significantly thicker bones, wider and heavier skulls, and a bite force capable of completely crushing the femur of a wild horse in a single snap. They hunted in highly coordinated militaristic packs and could easily surround, disorient, and tear apart a lone human hunter in a matter of seconds. Humans, on the other hand, armed with heavy flint-tipped spears and a desperate need to survive, actively hunted and killed these giant wolves. We did not want to pet them. We wanted their thick, warm pelts to save ourselves from freezing to death. It was a war of absolute bloody attrition. Both species hated each other. Both species deeply feared each other. But one day, against all evolutionary odds, both sides realized a cold mathematical truth. If they continued to kill each other over the limited prey, they would both inevitably lose the ultimate war against the advancing glacier. That mutual realization is how the most successful and brutal military syndicate in the history of planet Earth began. The domestication of the dog did not start with human love, and it certainly did not start with kidnapping innocent puppies. It started with a highly pragmatic, mutually beneficial contract for pure survival. It all began on the invisible borders of human camps, right where the flickering orange light of the fire met the absolute, terrifying darkness of the polar night. Humans were incredibly messy, wasteful eaters. When a tribe managed to take down a massive beast like a woolly rhino or a mammoth, they could not consume thousands of pounds of meat before it spoiled or froze solid like a rock. They left behind massive mountains of biological garbage, cracked bones, tough, unchewable tendons, pieces of bloody hide, and rotting meat. To a human digestive system, this is hazardous waste that will make you sick. But to a starving, desperate wolf pack slowly dying of hunger in the middle of a brutal -40-degree winter, that garbage pile is absolute salvation. It is a free, limitless buffet. Under normal circumstances, most wolves were naturally terrified of humans. Their flight distance, the biological minimum distance an animal will keep between itself and a perceived lethal threat, was huge. As soon as a human stood up or grabbed a spear, a normal wild wolf would sprint for the tree line in panic. But biology and evolution are all about random variations. In every single wolf pack, there were genetic mutants. These were specific individuals born with naturally lower cortisol and adrenaline levels in their bloodstream. Their internal fight-or-flight response was slightly broken. They were a little braver, a little less anxious, and significantly more arrogant than the rest of their pack. They dared to cross the invisible line. They approached the human camps closer than any other predator would dare, snatched the discarded bones from the edge of the firelight, and ran away into the safety of the night. And then human beings made a brilliant, highly calculated tactical move. They stopped throwing their spears at them. Ancient human hunters, sitting by their fires and watching these glowing eyes in the dark, realized something incredibly valuable. As long as this massive, highly dangerous predator was hanging around the perimeter of the camp eating our leftovers, absolutely no other predator would dare come near us. No cave lion, no saber-toothed cat, and no giant short-faced bear was going to successfully sneak into the human camp undetected while a pack of hungry, highly territorial wolves was actively guarding their new, reliable feeding trough. The wolves were fiercely defending their food source, and by extension, without even realizing it, they were defending the humans. In that exact moment, without building a single tool, humans had just acquired their first major technological upgrade. It was a biological technology that completely changed the rules of the prehistoric game. They had gained an organic early warning system, a living, breathing biological radar. Let us look at the pure science of perception. In the blinding, chaotic conditions of a polar snowstorm, the human's primary evolutionary weapon, our highly developed stereoscopic color vision, became completely, laughably useless. We were functionally deaf and blind in the dark. We could not see a predator until it was already biting our neck. But the wolf was a biological supercomputer designed exclusively for scanning deep space. The physics of sound and smell propagation in freezing air are absolutely merciless to human senses. Cold air is incredibly dense, trapping scents close to the frozen ground where our noses cannot reach them. But a wolf's olfactory system is an absolute marvel of natural engineering. While a modern human has about 6 million olfactory receptors inside their nose, a wolf has up to 300 million. The specific part of a wolf's brain dedicated solely to processing and analyzing smells is proportionally 40 times larger than ours. A wolf standing at the edge of a human camp could smell the distinct musky odor of a migrating reindeer herd, or the sweat of a hostile approaching Neanderthal raiding party from more than 2 miles away. Their ears, acting like highly sensitive independent satellite dishes, could rotate independently to pinpoint the exact location and distance of a dry branch snapping under a bear's heavy paw in pitch-black darkness. When a wolf sitting at the edge of the camp suddenly stopped chewing a bone, stood up, raised the fur on its back, and let out a low, vibrating growl, the human tribe did not ask questions. They knew it was time to wake up, grab their heavy spears, and form a defensive perimeter around the children. This living, breathing radar system saved tens of thousands of human lives and prevented countless tribes from being slaughtered in their sleep. But a radar system is strictly for passive defense. The true, terrifying power of this cross-species alliance was fully unleashed on the hunt. Wolves possessed incredible, almost supernatural physical endurance. Their bodies, their lungs, and their paws were perfectly evolved for the frozen steppe. They could chase prey for days through deep, exhausting snowdrifts. They could track a wounded giant elk for dozens of miles until the prey reached a state of absolute cardiovascular exhaustion and collapsed. But the wolves had a critical, fatal weakness. They lacked heavy weapons. Taking down a massive, thrashing prehistoric beast armed with deadly horns, sharp hooves, or giant tusks required wolves to get dangerously close and use their teeth. A single desperate kick from a wild horse could instantly shatter a wolf's ribs or crack its skull, leading to a slow, agonizing death in the snow. Humans had a completely different complementary skill set. We possessed upright bipedal posture, the unique anatomical ability to throw heavy projectiles with massive kinetic energy, and sharp, flint-tipped spears that could strike a deadly, organ-piercing blow from a perfectly safe distance. But we had terrible stamina in deep snow. We quickly ran out of breath, and because we lacked a natural thick fur coat, our bodies burned calories at an incredibly unsustainable rate when running through a blizzard. Combining these two massive biological flaws created the ultimate unstoppable hybrid killing machine. The strategy was flawless. The wolves would do the heavy, exhausting lifting. They would use their radar to locate the herd, isolate a weak or young target, and drive it relentlessly across the ice toward a pre-planned, hidden ambush point. The humans would wait there, conserving their precious energy. As the exhausted, cornered prey stumbled into the trap, the humans would step out of the shadows and finish it off with heavy thrown spears. This ensured a rapid, highly efficient kill without any dangerous physical combat or casualties to the wolf pack. Immediately after the kill, they engaged in a strict, fair division of the biological spoils. Humans claimed the prime, calorie-dense muscle meat, the vital organs, and the incredibly valuable, life-saving warm pelts for clothing. The wolves were happily rewarded with the tough entrails, the cracked bones to extract the rich marrow, and the massive amounts of raw fat that human stomachs could not easily digest. This was not a relationship based on friendship, petting, or playing fetch. This was a deadly, highly efficient corporate business model that allowed both human and wolf to completely monopolize the harsh environment of the glacier. But the absolute ultimate test of this alliance did not happen during the adrenaline-fueled chaos of the hunt. It happened in the dead of the night, when the orange flames of the fire began to die out. Imagine an Ice Age night. The sun disappears below the horizon, and the ambient temperature rapidly plummets to -40 degrees Celsius. In such brutal, unforgiving conditions, the human body loses heat at a catastrophic, life-threatening rate. The laws of thermodynamics and Newton's law of cooling are relentless. The greater the difference between your internal core body temperature and the freezing environment around you, the faster the heat is aggressively sucked right out of your skin. Even wrapped in multiple layers of carefully stitched animal furs, sleeping directly on the frozen ground was a deadly gamble. If you fell into too deep of a sleep, your core temperature would drop, your heart rate would slow down, severe hypothermia would set in, your organs would shut down, and you would simply never wake up. And here is where the wolves played their final and perhaps most astonishing role in the survival of the human race. A wolf's normal internal body temperature is naturally higher than a human's, running constantly at around 101 to 102 degrees Fahrenheit. Furthermore, they are equipped with an incredibly dense, double-layered undercoat that traps their body heat perfectly, creating a microclimate of warmth around them. They are, essentially, living, breathing, biological radiators. Humans quickly learned that sleeping as close as possible to these massive, warm predators was the ultimate key to surviving the freezing nights. They began to sleep shoulder to shoulder with the pack. 3 large wolves, curled tightly around a fragile human body, acted as a powerful, pulsating biological thermal blanket. They shared their radiant body heat, completely insulating the human and preventing their core temperature from ever dropping to that critical, fatal point. This survival practice was so fundamental, so deeply ingrained in our history, that even to this day, indigenous northern peoples have a common cultural saying, "A 3-dog night." It means the frost outside is so incredibly severe, so deadly, that the only way to survive inside your shelter is to sleep embracing 3 animals. As centuries slowly turned into millennia, the powerful dynamics of evolution began to permanently alter both species. Those wild, arrogant, low-adrenaline wolves that had first bravely approached our garbage piles began to undergo profound biological and genetic changes. Because they no longer needed to hunt massive, dangerous prey to survive, their bodies started to adapt to their new, easier, symbiotic lifestyle. The genetics of self-domestication caused a biological phenomenon known as neoteny. This means the wolves began to retain juvenile, puppy-like physical characteristics even into full adulthood. Their long snouts became slightly shorter, their massive, bone-crushing jaws became less powerful. The cartilage in their stiff, upright ears weakened, making them floppy. Their coat colors changed, developing spots and patches. And most amazingly of all, their brains physically rewired themselves. They developed the unprecedented, unnatural ability to read human facial expressions, to understand human pointing gestures, and to make direct, sustained eye contact, something a wild wolf considers a direct challenge and a lethal threat. They literally hijacked our own mammalian biology. By staring into our eyes, they triggered the release of oxytocin, the exact same love hormone that bonds a human mother to her newborn baby, in our brains. Over thousands of years of shared fires, shared meat, and shared warmth, the ferocious, terrifying Pleistocene megawolf slowly, biologically transformed into the domestic dog. But as modern humans, sitting in our comfortable, climate-controlled homes, we must never forget how this incredible journey actually started. This alliance was not forged in comfortable, warm apartments, or by throwing a plastic frisbee on a bright green lawn. It was forged in the absolute darkest, coldest, and most unforgiving climate this planet has ever seen. We survived the ice not because we were the strongest, the fastest, or the most heavily armored creatures. We survived because we possessed the supreme intelligence to recognize an opportunity and the sheer courage to make a blood contract with our absolute worst enemies. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Here, we completely tear off the fake Hollywood masks from history, ignore the comfortable fairy tales, and tell you how human survival actually happened. Stay curious, stay warm, and we will see you back in the Ice Age.